Hello, hello. So I am hopping on today to talk a bit about this anxiety alchemy program, which I am just so excited to get out into the world. It's been a little bit of a long time coming, and so it's hold on, let me switch that. There we go. Yeah, it's been on my heart for a long time, but is like finally ready to meet the world. So I'm super excited about that and really glad if you have chosen to watch this video to learn a little bit more about it. The first thing that I want to say is like, this is a really different way of working with anxiety, okay? We're not doing symptom management here, and we are not trying to fix ourselves so that we stop being anxious. And this is like just a huge shift that I had to make, which is so rooted in shame and insecurity and uncertainty. When we get into, I mean, really any like uncomfortable emotion, but anxiety is the one that I'm focusing on right now because it is something I know so freaking well. I remember the first time that I started working with a therapist specifically around anxiety, and the first time that she told me that it wasn't likely to be something I would ever fully get rid of, but would learn how to live with. And there was a part of me that like, oh, just sunk so hard. And then there was also a part of me that's like, yeah, that makes sense, because this isn't something that is a pathology, but something that comes through my body as a way to process things. So that was where it started for me, but it really wasn't until I started getting into yoga therapy and embodiment work and energy healing and even tarot more recently that I was like, okay, there is a different way of being with these emotions where we're not trying to get rid of them, but actually alchemizing the emotion themselves to create something or to move something or to evolve in some way. So when I first started experiencing anxiety, the biggest thing for me was that I was working in a job that I knew was not going to be my long-term thing, and yet I felt like I had to stay in it. And it was the first time in my life, like I had experienced anxiety before, but it was always rooted in something tangible. Like I'd be like, yeah, I'm anxious because this big thing is coming up. And this was the first time in my life where I would just wake up anxious. Every single dang day, I would just wake up anxious, you know? And I know some of you can relate to that experience, and just not really having a particular reason why. It's like, apparently I'm anxious, you know? So it was very confusing for a long time because I couldn't figure out what it was. At the same time, I was always trying to get it to go away. Now, during the workday, I was super good at this, okay? I had this great to-do list that was always way overstacked with more than I could possibly do in a day, but I would just check things off that to-do list, boom, 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 and keep myself so thoroughly distracted all day long that I would not feel the anxiety actually until I got home, landed on the couch, and then it would hit me like just a huge car was suddenly sitting on my chest. Be like, shit. It took me a long time to stop resisting it. It took me a long time to actually start letting myself feel it, because the moment that it comes up, and tell me if you relate to this too, the moment that it comes up, I'm ashamed that I'm feeling anxiety. It's not just that it's uncomfortable and I don't want to feel it. I am ashamed that it's coming up right now and that I can't just be happy, because look at life, you know, everything looks really golden right now, and there's so many amazing things that are happening, and there's so many things that I could write down in my gratitude journal of why it's so of like why life is so great. Yeah, Corinne, it's hard to distract myself with work when I'm working from home. Oh gosh, I hear that. Yeah, for sure. A lot more spaciousness, less distractions for sure. But yeah, so turning towards it was a big shift. And I think that the most challenging thing about this change that I'm wanting to bring to you all, because it's been so powerful for me, is that first, oftentimes it feels worse. You know, it's like, no, we're just going to keep it at bay. It's dangerous. It's scary. We're just going to keep it over there. I know it's happening, but I'm not going to let myself feel it. And when we let ourselves feel it, I mean, most of the time when I would finally do that, I would start crying, or, you know, like, and Oftentimes, though, that's the release. But point being, we're shifting away from avoiding it to turning towards it, because then it's not even just that like, oh, okay, there's a release. Okay, it like can move forward. Then we can get curious about it. So this was a huge thing for me when I realized that the anxiety I was experiencing was not because of any particular event that was happening, but because I was living my life in a way that was not in alignment with what I wanted to be doing in the world. And so it kept getting worse and worse and worse. It went from being kind of general anxiety to having panic attacks and feeling really out of control with it, and a lot of mystery around like, why is this happening to me? And then it clicked into place, is that the reason it was getting bigger and bigger is because I was continuing to live my life in a way that wasn't the life that I actually wanted to be living. And this is where spirit comes in, because spirit was calling me to make a change, because I could see, and I'm sure all of my guides could see, that I could have continued on the path that I was on that was not made for me for years and years and years. I had already been on it for a few years. Like, it would have been so easy to just keep the ball rolling. And so for me, and I think for many others, anxiety is a unavoidable sensation in our bodies that will get louder and louder until we hear what it is that it has to say. And this is the alchemy process. Because when we hear what it has to say, we can start to make the shifts. Now, for me, it was a total life remodel, you know. I had to get out of my job. I started a new career. I started learning all sorts of things that I'd always wanted to be learning. And it was a huge shift. It's not always that huge, okay? If you're watching this, it's like, oh no, I can't quit my job. Like that might not be it for you. But the point is that when that's happening, we can start to get curious about maybe there's just a subtle shift that your body needs, that your heart needs, in order to feel like you're moving in the direction that was made for you, in order to feel like the magic that you were literally put here to bring into the world is starting to come through in some way. So we got to work with that shame. We got to work with unearthing and examining what it is that these emotions are actually trying to communicate to us. And then we need to trust. We need to trust that the process that we are engaging in is connecting us to a deeper part of ourselves. There's patience to it, you know, like there are some cycles, you know, I've started to feel my rhythm with anxiety these days. You know, it's like a partner. It shows up. It's like, oh, okay, you're here today. We're going to check in on maybe what it is that you want to teach me. And sometimes it teaches me what it wants to teach me in a day and moves right on through. And sometimes it's there for a month, and the patience that comes with it. But see, here's the thing. It's so much easier. It's so much easier now that I am not resisting it. Because when I was resisting it, that was like 3/4 of the energy that anxiety was expending, was covering it up, being ashamed of it, trying to hide it from my partner, who it never worked, by the way. We'd be in the grocery store and you're like, you're feeling anxious, huh? It's like, no, don't see it, you know? Like, we want to hide these really tender parts of ourselves. That takes so much energy. So where increased peace comes from, an increased sense of stability comes from, is to say, yeah, okay, that's here today. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Do I need to make some space to work with it? Also probably yes. Can't just move on and ignore it, you know, and distract ourselves. We got to make space to work with it. So the 4-week program here, there's a few different ways that you can engage with it, but I'm going to go much deeper into what this process looks like. And so this is really rooted in like scientific research of emotional processing and the way that we store things in our bodies, and of embodiment and somatic therapy. Okay, so there's that piece of things, but there's also a huge piece of this that is spiritual work, that is energetic work, that is stepping into what we really desire in the world and acknowledging that, because so often when we're feeling anxious, it's because we're not actually receiving. We're not receiving what it is that we really want to be receiving. So we're going to dive much deeper into how that actually works, how to get embodied, how to move past the shame, how to unearth the layers of sensation that can actually communicate things to us, whether we're getting pulled toward or away something is just an example, but getting into the details of feeling in our body beyond just the blanket label of anxiety. We're going to learn how to examine what it is that we see and connect with whatever sort of spiritual practices we have to pull the wisdom out of our bodies, out of our hearts, to pull it up and out into the world. And each week, we're going to have embodiment practices to go along with this. We've got process, we've got embodiment practices, we've got journal prompts and meditations. And then if you go into the next tier, we're also going to get together a couple of times to answer questions and share with each other about how this is showing up, how it's working, how it's not working, and brainstorm a little bit around it. And then one tier up also get to do some one-on-one work with me. And a lot of actually what is coming through now in this group format is stuff that has been happening in my one-on-one work for a long time, and I've just started to see like this is something that needs to get put out more. So there's a lot more details in my link in the bio if you are interested in joining. So this being the pilot program, I'm offering this for really affordable rates, and would just love to have you join if this feels like it's something that's calling to you and you're getting a yes. I want to acknowledge we're a little ways out from it. I'm not starting it until February 13th, which is going to be on a new moon. We're going to do a new moon to new moon cycle with this, which just felt like really appropriate for this type of work that is all about like being in the cycles of sensation and emotion. So we've got a little bit of time, but I'm doing that specifically because there's a lot that I want to share to help you figure out if you are a good fit for this. But if you're already watching this and getting a like, hell yes, then you can go register right now at that link in my bio, and I will be back on at some point and just be sharing more. So keep an eye out for all of that. Thank you, Corinne. And yeah, talk to you soon.